Hi guys, welcome to Let's Talk Part 2. We're talking about marriage again. This is the second part of what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Just answering the rest of the questions that came through. Just before we start, just a little section just saying actually this isn't about if your marriage is in trouble or if you are facing a situation where it's kind of make or break for the marriage, then we would encourage you to seek help. We're not professionals, we're pastors that have been married 22 years, and being pastors we've walked the journey with a lot of marriages over the years as well, so we've got quite a bit of experience in marriage and we kind of want to share that experience with you. But if you need to seek more professional advice, then we would encourage you to do that. Where we're pastors, a lot of what we're saying is very much going to be based around the Bible, based around God. But hey, God was the one who came up with marriage in the first place, and so we feel it's important just to go back to those foundations, and in order to find out what's best, you have to go back to the why it was made. And so we're just going to talk a little bit around that. We hope you enjoy it. We hope it will help you, and go from there.
And guys, you know, if any of you right now are suffering with any kind of abuse in your marriage, that is not okay, and we just would encourage you to get out, that you are worth more than any abuse at all, and just get yourself to a safe place and get help, and just trust God in whatever comes from there. Last time.
Yeah, we've got 20 minutes. Just
20
one thing to say, we're going to do it all in 20 minutes. Wherever we're at in 20 minutes time, we're going to stop the video. So it would just be a 20-minute session.
We've got 3 questions, hopefully, that we're going to get through. Last time we looked at the important elements. What are the important elements of marriage? We looked at do you find that expectations between husbands and wives are different? And how do you keep your marriage fresh? So if you didn't see part 1, go back and have a little listen to those questions there. But first question this time is, how do you deal with conflict in a marriage? Oh, big question.
Conflict. So conflict in a marriage is actually, within good marriages there's conflict. I'd probably say that. I think often you can have this almost a Disney dream thought of what marriage is going to be like, where nobody argues and everybody lives in this wonderful bubble of life.
We actually get a little bit concerned when people come to us and say we've never had an argument. And we're not talking about argument throwing and shouting and throwing things around, just a disagreement. We've never had a disagreement. That is a worry. Because actually, like Tim said, in a healthy marriage there should be a little bit of different opinions in certain things, and
I think often the worry is that people don't want, they're afraid of conflict within marriage, and so what they'll do is they'll hide some of their feelings and hide some of their hurts and hide some of the things that may have happened, rather than confront it and deal with it. And what happens when that situation takes place is that basically what can happen is there's almost that emotional separation later on in life, because you kind of hold that grudge, if you like, and you hold that hurt, and it's inside of you and it hasn't had an opportunity to come out and be dealt with. And actually a healthy marriage is a marriage where these sort of things are able to come out and be dealt with, and then moved on from. And really conflict is about dealing with these things and moving on from these things. So closure is important within conflict. So really it's about looking at ways in which you can bring things out, you can deal with them, and you can get closure on them. And that's really important. So I would suggest, my thought would be, just make sure that when you're dealing with things, it's not in an emotional state, if that makes sense. So maybe you just need to give it a bit of time to calm down. Don't then calm down and not deal with it. That calming down then has to lead with, okay, I do need to deal with this. I need to think about how I'm going to deal with it. How am I going to present this to my spouse? Not in a way that's threatening or aggressive or in your face or blame culture. It's really just a case of saying, look, this may not be what you've said, but this is what I think you've said. This is what it made me feel like. The chances are your spouse had no idea that was the case. Men and women think so differently. I will say things to Dan, and Dan will hear something that's totally different to what I've been trying to say. And actually, when you have that conflict resolution, you're actually talking about it. and you're getting the true perspective rather than a perspective that maybe you thought was right but
And
wasn't.
vice versa, I'd just like to say.
Yeah.
It is just so key, guys, that you get yourself in a place that is on neutral territory, if you like, in the sense of not perhaps in the hustle and bustle of the home where the stress is up here, you've got lots of things going on, you've got things to do, the children may be running around and causing havoc. Maybe just pull yourselves away every now and again and just say, actually, we really need to talk. Let's go and let's just go and have a walk out somewhere while the kids are at school or wherever, or being babysat or whatever. Just get yourselves out into the open, out of the home, and walk and talk. I mean, I think we mentioned this last time. We were advised by my parents, always go for walks. It's a good thing to walk because you're not distracted, and the only thing you can do really is talk. And sometimes we've gone on walks, walking the dog, and we've just started a conversation, and actually something has naturally just come up. It hasn't been pre-planned or anything, but something has naturally come up as we've talked, and we've realised actually that is the thing, we need to deal with this, we need to discuss how we're going to move forward in this. And you know, it's such a vital thing to input that into your lives, not just when things have got bad, but actually make it a habit of maybe even weekly having that talk where you ask each other, how are you, what's going on, I'm struggling with this right now, can we just discuss this, can we deal with this?
And it is all about communication as well. A typical example of this I learnt in my first few years of marriage, the hard way, was, for example, Danny would say to me, Tim, can you put the rubbish out? Can you sort the bin out? My mind was, yeah, I'll definitely sort the bin out, but right now I'm watching Match of the Day, or I'm watching football, or I'm watching something. And yes, Dan, I'll do that, but I'm watching this first. Now, I think, because I'm a guy, it's very, very simple. What I'm saying is, I'm dealing with that problem, Dan. I'll do that in a second, but first I'm just going to sort this out. What Dan hears is, Danny's in a situation where this bin is stressing her out. It needs to be emptied so she can do other things. So what she's hearing is me say, I'm prioritising football above your thoughts and your feelings. And so therefore, I don't value you, and I don't value the things that you do. That's what Dan hears when I say, hold on a minute, I'm just watching the football. That isn't what I mean, but it's what Dan hears. And so this is a typical conflict situation, really, where that re-explaining needs to take place. Because if you don't explain that, if you just go, you know, both parties are going to have an issue eventually, because nothing will change unless it's dealt with. Nothing will change. And so you get this situation where next time Dan needs the bin and says, can you sort the bin out, and I'm in the middle of stuff, if that conversation hasn't taken place and I don't understand how Dan is feeling, I will then naturally say, yeah, no problem at all, Dan, I'll do that in a few minutes when I get the time, but I'm doing this at the moment.
See, guys, I don't know whether you've noticed that women and guys are quite different. I think women, and I don't want to generalise because I know everyone's different, but on the whole, from my experience anyway, I can only really speak from my personal experience, I'm quite an emotional person. So I can get quite emotional about a bin not being emptied.
If you can.
You know, not necessarily emotional, crying emotional, frustrated emotional about a bin not being emptied. So something like that, and Tim just does not compute that. He does not get that often. So he's just thinking, it's only a bin. It's just a bin. It can wait. But for me, that's something really big. So we've had to kind of get to a good place of compromise when it comes to things like that, not just the bin, but other things like that, just so that we can be happy and move on, and there's that kind of harmony in the home.
It's all about talking. It's all about hearing what the other person is hearing when you say what you're saying, and the reason why behind all of that as well. But again, in that situation, it's not to kind of do it straight away, because otherwise Danny will come and say, you don't appreciate me. You know, that emotion will get high. Then my emotion will get high because I feel like I'm being attacked and I've done nothing wrong apart from watch the telly.
That's the whole point,
and so you've got this whole roller coaster of emotions. Sometimes it's best just to say, okay, there's an issue there. We'll put it on the back burner. We'll let our emotions calm down a bit. We'll go for a walk, we'll do something else, and then we'll bring it to the table and say, look, when you said this is how it made me feel. And then we can educate each other really on how to live together and how to do life together and how to move on. So it really is making sure you just and giving each other space to talk, I'd say, is the other thing.
Yeah.
And appreciating and valuing the other person's opinion. It may be different to your opinion, but just value it and appreciate it and recognise that if it's important to them, because you're in a marriage, it's important to you. And so whether you personally find it important or not, if it's important for the other person, then it is important for you.
I think in any conflict, it's about trying to see something from the other person's perspective, and that can often be a hard thing. You know, putting yourself in their shoes, and you know, and sometimes when you're frustrated about something, that is the last thing you want to do. Your brain, you are frustrated, you are trying to understand where they're coming from, and to try and put yourself into their scenario and understand where they're coming from can be tricky. But I think, again, as Tim said, let the emotions die. Don't ever try and deal with things in the moment, because this is when arguments and big arguments happen and fights happen, and actually you end up saying things that you regret later. So that there's no point in that. Just take a deep breath, maybe, you know, kind of just say, okay, we need to talk later when the children are in bed, or when they're in a better position, and then deal with it later. Can't emphasise that enough. We better move on to the next question, if that's okay. Right, what part does sex play in a marriage?
The sex question, this is always going to come up, wasn't it? So I think in order to understand how important sex is in marriage, you have to understand what sex is. And I think over the years in society, sex has been diminished according to what it is all about, really. I think in society now we see sex much more of a physical act, where actually sex has been designed to be both physical, emotional and spiritual, which is why when somebody is attacked in a sexual way, it isn't just a physical attack like a punch. It means so much more, because it affects them emotionally, it affects them spiritually. There is so much tied up in sex. It's an incredibly powerful act, and though it can be incredibly good, it can also be incredibly damaging as well. And it carries incredible power, the power of sex, even to a point where it has the potential to create life itself. You know, it's probably one of the most powerful things that we can do as individuals.
Humans,
And so what God did with sex, he created sex. We you know, you got Adam and Eve that knew this was good, and I think we all know it's good. But it because it has such destructive potential as well for individuals. Marriage is the ideal scenario is that marriage is covered within a marriage agreement, and that marriage agreement means that actually two people can come together physically, spiritually, emotionally, in the security of a contract, of a marriage contract, where you are committed to each other, so that actually out of that, marriage can be something that's incredibly strong. And sex in marriage, I would suggest, or I would say, is absolutely vital to have a healthy sex life within marriage, that intimacy that comes. Otherwise, if you don't have that in a marriage, all you are is friends. You're just friends who live together. It's, you know, that it's the intimacy that makes the marriage, that makes your partner. And actually, the Bible says that it's two people become one. And I find that's when, you know, if you are somebody that has been intimate with someone who isn't your partner, or isn't your husband or your wife, should I say, and they leave and you break up, the pain of that, it's almost like being ripped apart. I think it's Lionel Richie said, every time you go away you take a piece of me with you, and it's literally like that. It is almost like a ripping away, because you become one. And when you rip away from becoming one, you end up damaged, and a little bit of each other gets ripped with, as well, and it's just very painful, very damaging, and can cause a lot of issues longer term. I follow someone called, or an organisation called Moral Revolution. Casey, my daughter, put me onto them, and they're incredible. And you can follow them on Instagram. They're putting always amazing quotes and statistics and different things on about the importance of marriage and sex, and you know, even if you're not married, living a life that
values your sexuality and all that kind of stuff. It's an incredible organisation, and I just looked on there the other day, and one of they put Myth Monday or something, like, you know, where you hear things that aren't true, and it says on Monday it said marriage is just a piece of paper. Well, of course it is so much more than a piece of paper, and it says here marriage is a lifelong promise to the other person that no matter how they are doing, you're there with them and you're going to give yourself for them. Those in the safety of a covenant marriage, of a marriage, experience far more emotional, physical, economic and sexual benefits beyond single or cohabitating couples. And they base all their stuff on statistics and surveys and different things that they've done.
We're going to look, can I just put in there as well, we're going to look at being single next, and actually there's a lot of fulfilment you can get from being single as well. So if you are single, then we'll look at that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just look them up if you want that bit of encouragement, but marriage is such a key thing.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to keep it fresh and exciting as well, and I think that's something that couples should work on. Ways in which you can do it. I think when you first get married and everything is new and exciting, and intimacy really isn't something that needs to be worked on, but actually as you progress within marriage and go through the years, then intimacy suddenly then becomes something that actually you have to work on.
I think there's certain seasons in a marriage, like perhaps when you've got young children and you get the sleep, you know, lack of sleep and all that sort of stuff, and you're just tired and life happens and other things become more important, and you almost just like it's a second thought, and you know, if it happens it happens, but actually it is really key to keep that within your marriage and keep it something that you both enjoy at all times, and you know, and talk about it with your spouse or
definitely
husband or wife.
Yeah, definitely talk about it, definitely work on it, be deliberate about it. Find out ways in which you can perhaps kind of work to keep it fresh, keep it exciting for you guys. But please do remember that it's so important, because it does bind the two of you emotionally together. And I think if you don't have that within your marriage, what can happen is emotionally you can drift apart. Physically you can still be there, you know, you can still be you know, tied up together in the fact that you're both working towards your home and your goals and everything else, but actually what can happen often is that you can emotionally drift. And what intimacy does is it brings you guys together, just keeps you emotionally one and spiritually one as well. So yeah, really, really important within a marriage.
Brilliant. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question.
Okay.
So how do you deal with finances in a marriage if one or both party are not good with money? We get a lot.
We have 2 minutes to answer this.
I'll hand it over to Tim in a minute because he's great at this stuff.
Quick.
But we have literally had so many people come to us over the years with their marriages are breaking down and their marriages are struggling because of the financial aspect of their household and stuff.
So with my 90 seconds, I'm going to say this: get a budget. Put a budget in place. If one of you is stronger with finances than the other, then that is the person really that needs to be looking at finances and giving the other person a budget in which to work with as well. So whoever is strongest in finance, they need to be the people that step up and take responsibility for their finances. Make sure you have a budget, a household budget in place,
and stick to it.
Don't. The thought often is, "Oh, I'm going to spoil myself because I've had a hard week, whatever." Don't think like that. You don't want to. You by spoiling yourself, you're going to ruin yourself by getting yourself into debt. Make sure you have a budget. Certainly in the early years, that budget can be very tight when you've got kids and you know not the 2 levels of income coming in. But just make sure you stick with that. If you need help, seek help. If you need someone to advise you how best to do it, get advice to how best to do it. Stick with that budget. Both of you agree what that budget is. Both of you commit to keeping to that budget, and then walk through. So, and that will save arguments later, because you can just say, you know what, this is what we both agreed. This was the budget.
There's been times in our life, certainly in our early marriage, where we've struggled financially, or we've had to tighten the belt in, and I've even taken cash out each week so that I'm not throwing a card at everything, because that's when you can so easily lose track of how much money you've spent in the week. You know, just to pop into Tesco, you know, here, there and everywhere, because you've run out of certain things.
Cards
but
are dangerous.
if you've got cash in your purse, you can see the money going down, and you know exactly how much money you've got left to make that work for the rest of the week. And actually that's a really, really good idea, and we did do that at one stage in our marriage. The other thing is, guys, if you are in debt and you've got debts going on and you're struggling to pay off those debts, CAP is an incredible organisation that can help you deal with that, and we personally run that. We're a hub for CAP at our church at Gateway, so if you need help with that, please do get in touch with us and we can put you on.
You can just Google it, CAP. It's Christians Against Poverty, but it is an organisation not just for Christians but for everybody. And it's a really great organisation, so yeah, please do get that help. Remember, my last little bit of advice before we finish, and I know we've just gone over the 20 minutes, my last little bit of advice is this: be careful of the £10 and the £20 ones. It's the little £10, it's only £10, it's only £20, but those things add up and they will kill you at the end of the month. So deal with those. Make sure you're very strict on yourselves when it comes to budgets, and go for it.
And if you can, in your budget, put a little bit in for treats every now and again, because you need a treat, don't you?
But you need to know exactly how much that treat is, and we need to stick to that budget.
Treat yourself every now and again.
As long as it's in the budget. Okay, guys, bless you. Hopefully this has helped you, and we'll be back next month to do the next Let's Talk, where we're going to be talking about being single. All right, thanks guys. Take care. Bye.